Living and breathing La Vida Boa. Welcome to the Boa Life Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Demora, alongside host Nick Colhay. We're here to inspire, to learn, to laugh, to talk, and to grow with each other.
What's up, everybody? My name's Nick Colhay. I'm your co-host. This is episode number 4, the Boa Life Podcast. You ready to do this, Steve?
Let's go! It is my sincere honor to bring on only our set. This is our second guest, Nick.
Number 2.
This is a big deal, right? And I'm honored to bring in a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, and without further ado, let's just jump right into it. If you could at least introduce yourself to the audience so they know exactly who you are, what you do, whatever you want to,
Whatever I want, right?
Yeah, whatever you want to give them.
Well, my name's Larry Pereira. I'm a local real estate attorney. Married to Dom Courtreal. She's an assistant principal, now Courtreal Pereira. Got to correct that. I've got 2 lovely children. Lucas, 19. Talia, soon to be 16 and going on 25.
As most daughters do.
Oh, she's going to be the death of me. So I live in Brookfield. I've been part of this community probably for over 20 years now. I grew up in Bridgeport. My parents have a grocery store in Bridgeport, still have that grocery store, and I think that's pretty much it.
You're happy to be here, definitely.
I'm happy to be here, man.
And we're happy to have you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for saying yes. That's a nice connection the 3 of us have. We all have daughters, which is pretty cool. We can probably dive into that a little bit. I guess the first question I want to ask you, and this is really, I always, for the folks at home to know, this is someone that I respect a lot. He's a colleague. He's a tremendous lawyer. He's a good friend. And when I have legal questions or when I'm struggling in practice and even in life, he's someone I can lean on, and I appreciate that. And I mean, as far as coming on a podcast, I know most people would be like, well, maybe, his time's valuable and he's here, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you.
Oh, I'm not getting paid for this?
Well, you're going to probably get a free drink at some point.
Actually, I think you're paying. You don't even know it yet.
Yeah. Now the cool part about this, Nick, is he actually probably knows what boa means because he speaks Portuguese. He's fluent.
Let's find out then.
You know what boa means?
Boom, good.
Boom. See that?
Boom.
He even says it with the accent. Yeah. So the good life. So I guess the first question is, what do you think the good life is?
Boy, what's the good life, huh? Actually, I tell you who has a good life. Louie and Figo. You know who Louie and Figo are?
No, I don't.
No, Louie and Figo are my dogs.
They do.
They're 2 little Yorkies, man. My pets, when I come back, I want to be Louie and Figo. Not just any dog, my dogs. They're good guys. What's a good life? Oh, boy. I think I'm living it. I honestly can say that I have a great, family environment. I've got a great wife, great kids. One of the greatest prides in my life is hearing people say, "No, your kids are such great kids. They're so polite. They're so nice." And I'd like to say I could take credit for that, but I think a lot of it too is Dom, my wife. But I don't know what's the how do you measure what a good life is?
It can really be measured a lot of different ways. I mean, anything you think of, from just being alive could be the good life.
Yeah. Listen, we've got our health, we've got a great career. I'm fortunate to work with great attorneys, especially Steve,
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah, got a great career. My wife's got a great career. And
part of the reason we're doing this is really that perspective, right? We're trying to figure out, what we can do to have better lives, right? Mm-hmm. I know we both have spoken about it. We both feel the same way you do. We feel blessed, but we also want to try to make our lives better and get perspective and help other people share in the good things in our life, and then help them with the struggles, and maybe in a sense helping ourselves with when we struggle. I know you and I have a lot of conversations about a lot of different things, but I know what we talk about a lot is the work-life balance. Correct. Now, you are fortunate enough to have an extremely good practice, highly respected. I know you didn't mention work, but I know you take pride in the fact that you're well-liked, well-respected in the legal community by clients, by colleagues. And what are you doing, or what are you not doing for because I know you. I know that your work-life balance is probably a little off whack these days. So can you explain how it's off whack these days, and what are you trying to do to compensate for that?
Oh, it's too funny that you asked that question. I was actually thinking about it earlier today, and I think a lot of it too is having a good support system at home and having an understanding wife. And you know, basically, I'll tell you a quick story. And this is probably a few years back. Dom would do expulsion hearings, so she'd have to leave sometimes at night. And there was one day, I'll never forget this. I'm pulling up the driveway, and she's running across the driveway, and she stops and she starts laughing hysterically. I'm like, going on, you know? So she gets in her car, she's driving away, and I'm like, what was that all about? She was like, we're like two ships passing in the night, you know, we're, you know, she's leaving, I'm coming home, you know, she had dinner on the stove, I've got to feed the kids, put them to bed, then she'd come home, so it's not easy. But I think it all starts with having a good, understanding wife. And, you know, my kids, when I come home early, they're like, Dad, what are you doing home so early? I think they're just so accustomed to me coming home late at night. You know, what's that old adage, you know, the law is a jealous mistress, you know? So, you know, I think it's true, man. You know, you and I right now are probably in one of the busiest, you know, closing environments that we've had in a very long time. Things are happening in seconds, minutes, you know,
Yeah.
and
You know, it's tough to hear your kids say, Dad, you're always working, or,
Yeah.
you know, you're going to work again. Can you just stay here? Like, we're leaving dinner early. We're leaving, you know, sometimes before they go to bed. And, yeah, it's tough things to manage. We always talk about the stresses life brings you, and sometimes the good things are also the cause of some of the hardships, right?
Yeah.
Now, what are you doing to manage some of the stress of the environment you're in now?
Well, I try to at least take my dogs for a walk with my wife. If I can drag her off of the computer, because she's working from home most nights too. But it's really just keeping myself grounded. I seldom watch TV. I've got chickens. I have
Really?
7 chickens that we take care of, so they sort of put things into perspective.
Do you have a lot of foxes in the neighborhood?
We're all fenced in, and there's 3 layers of protection for those girls. But
Ooh.
we do have fox, we have bobcats, we have hawks that have, you know, periodically popped in and terrorized my girls. But knock on wood, we haven't lost one yet. So,
Nice.
I think we know where to go get the eggs, you know?
Yeah, right?
yeah. But a lot of it, yeah. Well, anytime you need it, they're giving me about 7 eggs a day. So,
Wow.
But you know, I think it's looking for signs, man. You know, in terms of balancing home versus work, and you know, obviously that was one where Dom was coming, and she, you know, it was a jovial, you know, basically transaction. We're laughing at each other, but you know, I think it's a sign that we're working too hard. We're not giving, you know, time to each other, and not spending enough time with each other and with the kids. So, but I try to make sure I'm at all of Talia's, you know, games. I haven't been as good this year with lacrosse. But I've tried to make it to all of her field hockey games. With Lucas, I'd go most of his soccer games. So it's just trying to be there for the kids. And you know, growing up, my parents had a grocery store, and a grocery store is a 7-day business. You know, they only took half the day on Sunday, but every other day it was, you know, basically 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we didn't have a life other than on Sunday afternoons. So I always promised myself that I was going to make more time for the family. You know, I try not to come in too often on the weekends. I try to, you know, make time for them.
Growing up, were you working in the grocery store?
Yep.
Were you there 7 days a week?
During the summer, yes. Most of my friends would come back from the summer vacation. They would talk about how they went to Portugal, or they went to Florida, or they went to Wildwood. I went to Schaub's Grocery,
Yeah.
Carrying sacks of potatoes to people's cars, things of that nature.
That looking back though, you can probably say that was a good thing.
It was.
Growing up, I worked at a diner, and I always say, meeting and greeting and just conversating with all types of people, every couple minutes you're meeting someone new. That was probably one of the best things growing up as a teenager, just learning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can kind of relate to that.
Yeah, and the fundamentals of the work ethic, the ethos of working hard. Not to exclude you from the conversations right now, so to speak, but
all good,
it's a real
co-host.
Portuguese mentality, right? To work hard, and I think sometimes to a fault we work hard and we lack in other areas. I've kind of confessed to the public already that, you know, I've struggled with my weight, and I've struggled with how I eat and all these things, and I feel like, and I think you can be a good person to relate to maybe with, is that you sometimes push in some areas and then you're going to lack in other areas. I know that you and I have lives that are stressful, that, you know, aren't always mobile, and, you know, we're sitting and we're not always being the healthiest, but, you know, it's kind of the byproduct of the environment we are in. are there any routines that you have that help you with health that you pursue or that you're trying to pursue? Because I'm always trying to do things. So he said Nick made an interesting comment. He's like, "This is easy," and I'm like, I almost wanted to hit him because it's like, no, it's not. How dare you say that? But
What's that? What was easy?
working out. He's like, I get up, I run. I don't like it, but it's easy. And it's funny. There's certain areas of my life where I feel the same way. It's like, going to work, working hard, dealing with the stress. It's easy. Like, no, it's not. But you have certain wheelhouses, and there's certain things that we do well. And that's why Nick and I are a great complement, because there's we have a lot of differences, which I hope the audience will be able to learn from and learn from the differences that we have as individuals, and then certainly from our guests. So I guess the real question I'm asking is, what are you doing or trying to do to stay healthy and stay focused on making sure that you're there for your family, 30 years from now?
Absolutely. Actually, it's too funny because I was religiously on my elliptical until I broke it. And then I came down with COVID, so that sort of derailed it. But I was not eating fast food, which I've sort of slipped back into. So I was avoiding, eating, Taco Bell or whatever that other nonsense is that's readily available, because, you got 2 minutes for lunch. Where you go? You got to go through a drive-through. What do you have? What are your options? Dunkin' Donuts, Taco Bell, McDonald's. It's all crap. You know? Sorry, McDonald's. But yeah, I think as soon as I get through this hump, because right now I think we've turned the corner where I think things are going to start slowing down. I've got to just get into a routine, because I'm a creature of habit. I'll get up in the morning, I'll go out and let the dogs out, we'll have coffee. I do everything the same way all the time. Actually, even in my closings. People say, well, I don't remember you explaining that to me. And I can tell them for a fact that I have, because I start with the same document and I end with the same document. I have the same bad jokes for everybody. So if you've done more than one closing with me, you know what to expect. When I call in my secretary to witness a mortgage, I joke that she's going to help pay the mortgage, so she's already rolling her eyes when she's coming through.
I'm going to have to confess I've stole that joke. I use that joke when I ask a witness to sign the mortgage. I say, you're now paying half their mortgage. And I got that from Attorney
Well, you got to be
Pereira.
careful. I actually had a realtor that told the client that that meant that when she paid off her mortgage, the house was going to become his.
Oh,
And as soon as he said it, I knew who my person was, and she looked at me and she goes, "Is that true?" And I said, "Oh, here we go." So here I have to explain, in Connecticut, when you sign a deed or a mortgage, you have to have it acknowledged before an attorney or a notary public and 2 witnesses. So there's a 2-witness requirement. So that's what we're discussing. And
Yeah. And it's funny. Sometimes you got to use humor to take some of the stress out of it.
Well, it is. It's one of the most important transactions people are making. They're all wound up. They're nervous, and you want to put them at ease, and you want to talk to them in a language that they understand. And you and I have clients that are extremely wealthy, and then we've got the other spectrum that are, just buying their first, $25,000 mobile home, and to them, it's just as important as the multimillionaire that's buying a house on the lake.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things I admire most about you is that, and I try to relate to myself because I think I tend to be that way. I find you to be a very humble person and a servant when it comes to that. And a lot of times it's easy to get carried away with the title and thinking we're more important than we are. But you've stayed grounded. You've helped me stay grounded, and I continue to have to try to do that. And I thank you for that. But we haven't touched on this, but I've touched on this on an early Q&A in another format where you need to look for professionals that have a teacher's heart, and I feel like you do that. You're engaging the clients. Or what are you doing? What are you doing differently than some of the other people that you see in terms of how you deal with clients? Because it's obviously working for you.
You mean in terms of other attorneys?
Right.
Well, I've noticed, again, I'm not going to say any names or whatever, but again, I've never been in a closing where I could say I honestly watched somebody explain loan documents to people. But I've noticed that, when I was seller's counsel, I'd get to the closing and 15 minutes later, they're done explaining all the documents. So I think it's just taking the time to care about the people, going through the documents. I explain to people, look, you're signing it for a reason. The bank's put it in front of you for a reason. You need to know what you're signing. I don't read the entire document to them, but I give them a synopsis. I explain what the significance of the document is, and I go through each one so that they know when they put their signature on something what they're signing. And we have a lot of clients that are Spanish, Brazilian, Portuguese descent, and some of them English is their second language. So they're looking at these words, they have no idea what they mean. I think it's just a matter of taking time to care about people. And you had mentioned that you worked at the diner, my parents had a restaurant, and I think where I've honed a lot of my skills in terms of being able to deal with people on different levels is I attended bar for my parents' restaurant. So you're dealing with people sometimes that are, half in the bag, and their personalities are enhanced, and it's not always favorable. So it's being able to deal with people, negotiate. Sometimes last call, is not a pleasant experience for a lot of the people who are enjoying themselves. But I think it's just a matter of my life experiences. I had a men's clothing store at one point, so I rented tuxedos. My parents had the grocery store. We had the restaurant. It's all these different experiences that have sort of, and it is a business. I know Rick Ventura is probably rolling in his grave right now because he wanted to say it was a profession and you shouldn't operate it as a business, but it is a business. We're offering a service, and people are paying us for a service.
That's a reference to another attorney who was a Portuguese attorney who was not with us anymore, who was an interesting person, was a phenomenal attorney, and him and I, and him, Larry and I had many experiences with him, and maybe one day in the future when we have you on again, we can get into some of those stories. It's just funny how we've talked about how we impact each other and how we're all intermingled, and it's funny how you've gotten some of your skills throughout life and your inspirations and all that stuff. And it's funny that why we're here really is Nick did this event and it inspired me, and then we're having a podcast the other day, and then I'm remembering I remember the first time when we were in the gym together and you were coaching. And it's just funny how different people have a way about them. Like Nick, in an environment where he's comfortable in the gym, pushing people to work hard, and you in your little niche. And it's funny how in certain niches how comfortable we can be. And the beauty of this is that it opens a lot of people's minds up and eyes up to different areas. It's like this is an area that is a little more comfortable for me now as I'm progressing. But the first time I did it was tough. But it's a great learning experience, and our reasoning for doing this is to have people like you on and other guests to share their experiences. So again, I probably thank you 500 times, but thank you so much for being on.
It's my pleasure.
Here.
Questions. So with all of the different stuff you did growing up, grocery store, tending bar, how did you actually choose the career that you're at now?
I think the career chose me. I want to say that, I probably, we should cut this one out. I should probably have my wife to thank for it, and my buddy Mike Cruz, believe it or not. I was getting to the end of my undergraduate degree. I had a BS in finance, and I was looking for work, and everything was, all right, you'd go and interview, and it was a life insurance salesman position. I didn't want to sell life insurance, so I said to my then girlfriend, now wife, I said, Dom, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she goes, why don't you go to law school? Mike's in law school. And on a joke, I applied to law school, and I got in. I'm like, because I said to her, well, I'll apply. If I get in, I'll go in. I got in. I was like, what do I do now? And I have to go to law school. And the rest is history. I went through law school. I got my MBA while I was there, and came out of law school. I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. That was my goal. I got the BS in finance. I've got an MBA. I'd be great in-house counsel somewhere. Couldn't find a job. And I will never forget, we were at an exit, Quinnipiac has that big conference room, the big auditorium. So that we're going through our credits, making sure we have enough credits to graduate. And I hear the proctor say something about the average person coming out of Quinnipiac is making $30,000 a year. And I said, did I hear that right? And I said to the guy next to me, I said, did she say 130 or 30,000? He says, no, 30,000. I'm like, at that moment, I was immediately,
buyer's remorse.
It was buyer's remorse. I said, I just spent $90,000 plus on my education, and I'm gonna make $30,000 a year. Well, coming out of law school, I'm applying here and there, trying to get a corporate law position. I knew nobody. I didn't have any experience. They usually want 7 years experience. So I had interned with Serrano & Serrano out of West Hartford, and they offered me a job. Guess how much they paid me? $30,000.
Right on the mark.
Right on mark. I was like, so I was commuting to West Hartford from Brookfield, because we were living in Brookfield, and I finally got burnt with the drive, and he opened up a Danbury office. So, because I told him, I said, it's either that or I'm gone. So he opened up a Danbury office, and the rest is history. Something opened up with Fred. I joined Fred, and I've been there ever since. So it was, I almost tripped into it. It wasn't something that I grew up saying I want to be a lawyer. it was just one of those things where my wife sort of nudged me in that direction. Maybe it was intentional. I don't know.
Isn't it amazing how things like that happen? One simple sentence, literally, can change your life.
Almost like a dare.
Or show you the path, show you the light.
That's it.
You just got to be looking for it. That's all.
Yeah, it's funny how sometimes you just put in a certain direction, you just 1 foot at a time, and you get where you're going, right? How, as young fathers, Nick and I, what can we look forward to as they get older? What are some of the things you think you did well as a father? And obviously your job's not done yet.
No, it's not.
Your job's maybe just beginning. What are some of the things you think you did well, and what could you have done better?
Well, I probably could have spent a little more time with them, obviously, but I think we've had them at St. Joe's. Obviously, you're pretty familiar with St. Joe's since they were young, and I think that helped shape their moral, background. Lucas, when he was probably, I think, 4 or 5 years old, Talia was playing soccer, and Dom had made these little goodie bags. It was around Halloween, and there was this little skeleton pencil. I'll never forget. Lucas was talking about this skeleton pencil, and he's like, "Mom, make sure you save one for me." He was, he was. That's all he would talk about. So it was supposed to be for the team, and of course the teammates had some of their young siblings that were coming up grabbing bags, and Dom knew they were going to run out, so she put one in her purse. I'll never forget this. This little tiny thing comes up, and she says, "Do you have any more?" And before my wife could say no, Lucas pulls his gift bag and gives it to her and says, "Here, you can have mine."
Wow.
He was all choked up, and I'd like to think it was just our upbringing and our morals, but obviously your mom, helped shape that. Obviously, she was Lucas's teacher for a couple years. But he said, "Daddy, did I do what a good Christian would do?"
Oh, wow.
And he's choked up. I'm choked up till this day. I still am choked up about it. So again, I think we've done a pretty good job with Lucas. I think my wife has a lot more credit, when it comes to that.
I think they all do. All the wives deserve the credit. How many years apart are the kids?
Lucas is 19 and Talia's 15. She's going on 16, so 3 years.
Yeah. So I'm very intrigued now because we're kind of in the same boat. My son is older than my daughter, and they're a few years apart. So I may be calling you in the future for dad advice and legal advice.
Or both.
Hopefully not for too much legal advice, unless it's for buying a house.
Well,
It's amazing how we have certain things that just give us like pride and whatever, especially our kids. And it's like this reoccurring thing that we have. And I don't know if it's already come up at least once, maybe twice in our podcast, where this being selfless is being selfish.
selfish.
Selfish. Being selfless is sometimes being selfish. It's like they're not necessarily bad. Sometimes you look selfish being bad and selfless being good, but you need both, right?
You need
It's
a
the yin
balance.
and the,
Absolutely.
and it's just funny how these reoccurring themes come in. You want to teach your kids that it's like reciprocity, right? Be good, be kind, be nice, and these things come back to you. It's like I'm always telling my kids to make sure that they're good. And again, that's the reason why we're doing this. It's like, how are we going to have that good life? What is working for you? What's not working for you? Share your experience. It's like open ourselves up to people so that people can experience life through the lenses that we have and give them perspective. Because it's like, I always like starting the show. It's like, what do you think the good life is? It's like, it's different, everybody. But as you hear everybody's, then you start thinking, wow, maybe he's right. What's a good life? My family's doing good. I have my health. My career is doing good. It's out of balance sometimes because I'm working too. And it's like, it's great to hear what other people in our shoes are going through, because a lot of what we see online is BS, right? It's everybody's perfect makeup, perfect angles. Like you had fooled around before the cameras went on, right? To our buddy Justin out there, shout out. Can you get that slimming? Like, listen, if we had a slim lens, it would be on me, Larry, not on the guest, all right?
You won't catch me on Facebook, man.
So it's like, it's not about lenses. Take them off. Like, this is real life people. We're asking questions. Sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes it's personal. But, like, this is the truth. And people can see through the bullshit. You know that.
Yeah,
and I think that's why people like you and I as attorneys, because it's like we're real. We're humble. We're doing our best. We're not perfect. And, I think that's how Nick and I are going to be at podcasting. We're growing. We're learning. I'm constantly talking too much. I can't stop. I don't know. It's a definite problem. It's like how I eat, But it is what it is. This is me, Take me or leave me. I hope you love me because I love everybody else. We talk about growing together, the jealousy. There's so much stuff that people waste their time with. When my mother was alive, she was a special ed teacher. I was blessed to have her for 16 wonderful years and then unfortunately lost her to cancer. But I would always remember telling my dad, stop wasting your time with garbage. And my dad's a super guy. But he would waste his time, which, how the poor chaps can be sometimes.
The pettiness.
Stop wasting your time with garbage. Life's short. We have our health. Let's just do the best we can. And that's what we're trying to do here. And again, thank you for being a part of it. I know right now you could be with your family and you're here with me and Nick. I mean, we're going to make it worth your while. Trust me.
Well, we could rewind a little bit, and that actually, you made a good point, because if you see that as a selfish act, maybe it's, selfless in the future. Your kids are going to see this one day, listen, hopefully take something from it, or anyone else for that matter. So, you're right. You have to be selfish first. You have to work on yourself first in order to help others.
Yeah. And again, this is something that is a legacy of what we do in life. I always say echoes in eternity. This is something that down the road your kids can see and they're like, my dad wasn't so bad, huh? Look at it. Look at what he's talking about. Look what he has pride in. I think some of that is what brought me here, right? Seeing what you were doing for your kid, inspiring me to do something I always wanted to do, to share life lessons with my kid. What if I'm not here? What if I'm my mom? What if I'm gone one day? How are my kids gonna feel my presence? I had a birthday in April, not too far ago. Not too far ago doesn't make any sense.
Fargo?
Yeah, Fargo. Very limited time away from right now. That's a terrible way of saying it. Also, my birthday was April 26th, and the day before my birthday, I came home, and and I talked to you guys about this, what came down was on my rock wall on a windy day was, and people release these balloons into space, and then God only knows where they go. Well, one deflated balloon happened to land on my property on a wall that I never would have seen if I didn't look up to the moon. And I don't look up to the moon. I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful moon. I'm like, wait, who's in my head? I would never do that. And I see this deflated balloon that said happy birthday. And my mind was boggled. It's probably coincidence, but to me, it was like, this is my mom speaking to me. So I do believe that the universe speaks to you, and what you put out there comes back to you. And I feel like if we're working towards positive ends, I think it's going to come back to us. And I think that a lot of your success is because of the type of person you are. I think you put positive vibes out there, and you got all this success in return. And you think that your success. What do you think is the reason why you're successful? Because you are successful in what you do. You're successful because you're liked by your colleagues. You're respected by them. You're liked and respected by the people that you do work for, and you're making a very good living doing what you're doing. So you're successful in my book. I don't know what you think success is, right? Why do you think you are?
Hard work, man. You got to put in the time.
Very simple, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Another reoccurring theme, my friend.
Dare do I say it's easy?
Yeah.
You just got to do it.
Yeah.
If you're looking for words of wisdom, that's it, man. Hard work. You just got to put in the time. I tell Lucas this all the time. Lucas, it doesn't matter what you're going to do in life. You got to work hard at it. You're not going to be a soccer star by just picking up a soccer ball and kicking it into
So the
net.
reason you and I don't look like him is because we're not willing to put in the work?
Well, in certain things, man. Okay, come on.
Just find a good excuse for me, because I need one.
I'm sure if you guys tried, or if you did it, you set your mind to it, it would happen.
I think that
I'd have to wager him. If I wager him, this guy will be...
The competitive
Hey,
video.
whatever
do
works.
competitiveness.
Whatever works.
We should do that. We'll do that. We're going to do a podcast where we're going to go out on runs, meet every morning for a run. Listen, I'm a firm believer in if you put your mind to it, you can do anything.
That's it. You can do anything you want. I say it to Lucas all the time. I said, as long as you put your mind to it and as long as you work, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
Yeah, and hard work comes with being uncomfortable. I was listening actually to a podcast a day or two ago, and the whole issue of comfort came up because doing anything worthwhile is not comfortable. You know, you can sit on your couch all day and it's super comfy, but are you going to get anything done? No. So with hard work, it's important to realize that it's going to be hard and it's going to be uncomfortable. That's what makes it worth it. So, yeah, that's been my motto the past couple of years. Do things that are uncomfortable. Like try to get uncomfortable purposely. If I sit there and I feel comfortable, get out of there. Move. Do something different. It's probably 99% mental. You just got to get up and move.
Yeah, I agree. And like we've talked about, creating these foundations and these good habits. So you and I are going to try to find a good habit.
It's routines, man.
Right?
Routines.
The eating healthy. We can do it. We can get up extra early, pack a nice healthy meal so we're not stopping at Taco Bell and McDonald's and doing that, right?
They sponsors?
One day they might be. Right now, you notice we pull the labels off because one day this is going to be, some real important stuff.
Oh, I think it's time. What do you say?
This is the time in the program where we get a little serious. Dare I say? The good.
Serious?
We get a little serious. Yeah, we get serious about what we're doing here. This is important stuff here.
This is very important. We're probably helping more people than we know. Sooner or later.
I said, and you mentioned this early in the podcast. So you obviously got COVID, right? And that probably forced you a little away from work, so you got some good perspective, right? But in the beginning when COVID first started, and can you take me through that? Because as a practitioner, I was like, I know we were worried, like, oh no, this is the end for us. We're not going to be able to practice or anything, and then obviously it went a completely different way. Thank you. Yeah. But I know in managing the stress of the volume that we ended up inheriting, I found myself probably leaning on alcohol a little more than I should. Now, I'm very lucky that I don't have that as a vice in my life. I have a lot of vices, right? But I'm fortunate that that's not one of my vices, that I'm able to, keep it under control, right? I'm a social drinker and enjoy it. What are you doing? What did you do, and what do you do to manage the stress? What is it? Like, what's the key? Or do you not?
When COVID hit, it was unnerving, man, especially with the amount of volume we were getting. I thought we were going to drop off, and we were actually busier. But we did take it seriously at the office. We made sure that we sanitized. As soon as they put the mask mandate in place, we had the masks on. But it was unnerving, actually. Right at the beginning of the COVID crisis, my mother-in-law fell. So she was out there feeding. She likes to feed animals, and she fell, and we were worried about leaving her by herself. So for me, there was a little bit of extra anxiety because she was staying with us. So we had to sort of balance, all right, do we leave her at home and hope that she doesn't fall and get hurt, or do we bring her to our house? And for me, I was dealing with people, day in, day out, meeting with these people, people coming in from New York. Of course, New York was the epicenter, So I'd get home and I was on pins and needles because my mother-in-law was over. She's 80 years old, and I didn't know how this would impact her, or whether it would, I was going to bring it home to her. And of course, being an 80-year-old woman and being of her own mind, she didn't understand that when I came home, it meant that she shouldn't be around me. So I'd come home and she'd want to hover around me, and I'd end up just going up and going to bed because I was worried that I was going to get her sick. But we did do our share of drinking some alcohol, my wife and I.
Right?
Yes.
I think everyone did.
Yeah.
I know. I certainly did. I was home a little bit more than normal. How do you think? What did you witness anything going on with the kids? Any differences? Any major changes? Because obviously, your younger one is in high school, correct?
Yeah, she's in high school.
So that came to a halt immediately.
Yeah, she was. They were both. Lucas had just started Sacred Heart, so midway through there, he was staying home and doing distance learning. Talia was home for I think it was a couple of semesters. She's now back, but it was hard on them. Lucas didn't really have a regular graduation because he was graduating from high school, so we had to watch him on the TV, short circuit TV, because there was no in-person graduation. But I think it did impact these kids. My heart goes out to them because they couldn't go out to their friends' houses. We wouldn't allow them to go out to their friends' houses. We couldn't allow their friends to come over because my mother-in-law was still with us at the beginning of this. But gradually, I think that they're now starting to get back to normal, if there's such a thing.
Yeah.
But it was hard. It was hard watching them. They're like cooped up. They're home 24/7. I almost begged Lucas on a couple times, just go for a ride, go do something, because he was
Yeah.
home all the time.
Yeah, that's who I feel worse for. You know, young kids, just, you know, they're used to being social birds in school around friends all day trying to learn, and then that just comes to a halt. Can't imagine having kids in school and having to help them through that.
Yeah, no, as a parent, it's like, I don't know how you guys are, but I'm always second guessing everything I do, you know? And it's like life throws curveballs at you, and then it's like, wow, just add one more concern to the pile, you know? Especially, not that at their age it's not important, but my kids are a little younger. It's the socialization in schools and stuff that we're lost. It's like, you know, I don't know what we do moving forward, but
Yeah, but your kids are young. Your kids
Yeah.
all, again, they won't even realize that this has happened, you know?
you're
But-
probably right. It's, you know what? It's, this thing really, I think, shook a lot of people to the core, and I think coming out of it, I think little by little, like anything, time heals out all. You know, I think we'll come to a norm at some point. But man, this threw a lot of people it threw people. It's amazing what fear can do. You know, and especially when it's illness and death, and it's tough to cope with. And I mean, we've all dealt with loss in our life. It's like, it's hard to move on as an adult from that, but to be a kid and not really know what's going on and be scared, I can't imagine what was going through their minds. I know what was going through. I couldn't imagine what was going through our own minds, right? We kind of were doing. It was like business as usual, almost.
You know, so it depended on the client, because there were some clients that took it very seriously. And I'll give you a story. I had a New York family, 8 of them show up to a closing. And this is right in the smack in the middle of this crisis. And I said, guys, I can't have 8 people in a conference room with me. And my mother-in-law was still with us. So I asked everybody but the 2 that were signing to go get some coffee, and kindly asked them to go take a walk downtown Danbury, you get to know it. And but it's scary, man. You know, there were days that, you know, I would dabble on, this is all a bunch of BS. You know, we're overreacting. And then there were days that, you know, you read of someone dying from it. You know, there was the young Brazilian kid from the courthouse that died of COVID. You know, so.
Yeah, and managing many different personalities, it can be challenging, in work and obviously in real life.
Seeing how many bad things came out of, you know, the pandemic, you always got to look at, you know, the good life, right? So
I like that.
I'd be interested in what you guys think are some of the good things that came out of this, because there's got to be some. There's definitely some, and the way you look at it, you know, there should be more good than bad, because you always got to, you know, look up, right?
Yeah, a part of the boat life is the perspective, right? You know, looking at the things looking at the glass as half full. Because listen, we're all going to deal with tragedy. We're all going to deal with setbacks and failure, and we're going to have to work and sacrifice, and responsibility is the key to a good life. Because you don't have the good without, you don't have the bitter, you don't have the sweet without the bitter, you don't have the good without the bad. The thing for me was, especially early on, was that it brought you in close, tight, took away a lot of distractions, right? You were really present for me. It was a short period of time, unfortunately, because our profession and not even our profession, our area of our profession went haywire. It's still surreal. It's still that way, and you wouldn't think it. It's completely counterintuitive. But right in the beginning, where kind of no one wanted to do anything because there was a lot of questions, right? And it was just you and your family, and not much of a lot else. And it's funny when you have one worry, you know, you're just focused on. You're not focused on much, because everyday life. I mean, there's so many things to worry about. The bills, you know, worry about where your next, you know, where your next client's coming from, or when the world gets real small when stuff like that happens. And to me, that was a bonus where I could really focus in on being a dad, being a husband, and enjoying that time with not a lot of distraction. Unfortunately for me, it was, you know, few and far between. What about you? What was your ray of light during this
ray of
darkness?
light? Well, it taught us that, you know, obviously you don't have to come into the office. You know, you can work from home. It made us less dependent upon being, you know, brick and mortar. Obviously, the amount of volume that's out there now, that's a great thing. Obviously, But yeah, it did give you, an appreciation more for being home and being with the family. And it was nice to have them home, believe it or not. I'd come home to, full house every night because it wasn't like Lucas would be out here, or Talia would be out there, or Dom's they were all home, So I actually came home to a full house every night. It gets old sometimes, but.
I think for me, it was, obviously I'm into fitness and I want to see people make the right decisions physically as well as mentally. So obviously, gym's closed and everyone's hunkering down in their homes. Even going outside is scary. People are still wearing masks outside, passing each other in fresh air. It's crazy. So it was cool to see a lot of people actually take action and do stuff on their own. Well, maybe with the help of video, but doing stuff physically and being active inside their own house, because I think everyone was just used to going to a gym or going out with friends and doing some crazy workout. So from my perspective, that was a great thing, seeing more people get active. On the flip side, there was a lot of, people getting, lazier, but, to look at the good side of it, so.
Yeah, people taking initiative and doing things. I wasn't one of them during that time period, but I'm back at it. I mean, to me, it's interesting. It's like there's certain things that I find that I do better by myself, and there's certain things that I want to be in a group. Even like conversation, right? Obviously, you can talk to yourself, but it's not that fulfilling. Working out, there's something about being in a community that I like. So that's what I try to do. And if I don't do it in the morning, forget about it. So that was a struggle for me.
Yeah.
And I know for you it was more your elliptical braking. For
Got a
me?
new one.
For me, it's like where you dry the laundry that you can't put in the dryer.
Well, that's kind of bad timing because those prices skyrocketed.
Well, it was. I managed to get one for $200, a used one. Actually, this elliptical that was there belonged to the former owner of the house. It was down in the basement. I brought it up. I cleaned it up, and it was a clothes hanger for a year or two, and I just started jumping on it and listened to my Latin music, and I was actually losing weight, and felt great. So as a matter of fact, we're talking about, doing something, exercising, whatever. I just had this conversation with my secretary. I said, look, I got to jump back on the elliptical. And she and I would text each other, how many, minutes we did and how many calories we burned. So now we're going to start pushing each other again. So.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I know you do that with your brother-in-laws. The accountability, like how many miles you're running. And I'm like, that's great. That's what I like about my gym. It's like you go there, you see other people working out. If I go to a regular gym, you know me. I'm like, I just BS.
You're not going to get the workout.
No, I'm like, hey Tom, how you doing? How's work going? Before you know it, I had great conversations, but I didn't work out. Maybe I did like 4 curls. You go to like a group exercise. I do CrossFit, and I love it. And I get there, and you're accountable because you see other people doing it. You're like, well, if they're doing it, I can do it, and 2, I should do it. And every once in a while, you're not working as hard, but most of the time you are. I got to get more involved as doing more cardio. I think we have discussed this. I had talked about potentially one day doing for the bar some kind of, a CLE for, if people don't know what CLE is, that's continued legal education. We're mandated in Connecticut to do that stuff. But to do a wellness CLE, which is lawyers have, again, I keep talking about stress, and not that other professions don't have stress and all kinds of issues, but there's a lot of problems with lawyers and stress and suicide rates and alcoholism, and there's a lot of troubleshooting that can be done through mindfulness and meditation and exercise and all that stuff. So that's something I would like to do, and we're going to delve into these things in the future. Is there anything like that you do? I know you were trying to do the elliptical here and there, but is there anything else you're doing to try to be healthy and to mitigate some of the stress you're under?
I garden, so I guess
that's a form of meditation, you could say.
Yeah, I grab my coffee every morning, go out and pick zucchini or squash out of the garden. So actually, I got a late start this year because we were remodeling the house, so I didn't have access to the extra room, and my seeds actually right now I've got little tomato plants like this, whereas in previous years I was ready to plant them outside. So I garden. I've got a little vineyard set up in my backyard, and I like to do yard work. My wife gets on my case because like, you don't have the time to do this. Why don't you just hire somebody to do it? But I think that's my out. You know, that's, you know, when I'm on my lawnmower with my headphones listening to music, I'm not thinking about the office. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not worried about whether this mortgage contingency is coming and whether Steve's going to grant the mortgage contingency or whether his client's going to kibosh the deal. You know, I'm just worried about keeping the straight lines on the lawn. You know?
I think that's important for the listeners and the viewers to take in, because the simplest things can actually be the best stress relievers, and just the little things you do in your daily life. You know, you find your niche. You love to do it. You're staying active. You're saving money. But just like you said, your wife's like, why do you need to do that? Well, everyone has their own niche.
And I enjoy to give. You know, I'll bring tomatoes to the office. I'll bring zucchini. So it's my way of giving to people.
It's like working at the market all over again.
Yeah,
Except you're not getting paid for it.
Full circle.
exactly.
That's your own little supermarket.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
No, and this is the type of stuff we explore, like to each his own, right? It's like different strokes for different folks. Like that's how I feel when I golf. You know, a lot of people that get frustrated or don't enjoy the sport, or even former athletes, they play golf. Like, yeah, I get out on the golf course, same thing. I don't worry about mortgage contingencies. I don't worry about an argument I had with my wife or my kids, or am I being a good person or a good father and husband. I just enjoy what I'm doing, and that's my. I think everybody needs that. Like, is your release working out? Is it like,
Pretty much.
right? Getting out a run. It's like all you care about is the pain.
It's very simple, yeah. And you know, when I was encouraged by David Goggins to do the actual challenge a couple months ago, that was it. You know, he always said, like, you find deep meaning putting yourself through pain and suffering. You find out who you are, and then you know, for me, I enjoyed it. You know, not many people enjoy it. It's not like I go out there and torture myself day in and day out, but there's some kind of reward that I see physically and then just feel in my body and mentally. You know, it's a mind clearing, and it helps me get by.
It's funny because this is what this is doing, except for what do we do? Why are we doing this? This is the ordinary guy, and like ordinary guys doing ordinary things. You know, like Goggins, like he's the type of guy, like if you're working out with music on, he doesn't like that.
Exactly.
Right? Because music's a distraction. So it's funny, and it's like, wow, you can go out and garden and mow your lawn and probably get some peace of mind. Like, yeah, I can see that. And everybody has these useful tidbits that we can learn from, or at least someone else that does that. So now we have a listener thinking, wow, I garden to decompress and to relieve some stress. I'm not weird. I'm going to keep doing that. Attorney Larry Pereira does that.
Well,
you know,
let's say,
sometimes
sorry to cut you off,
Yeah,
but
no,
just
please.
as an example, gardening, it's like you do that as a daily routine. You're going out there when it's cold, when it's rainy, when you really don't want to, you know, put on your slippers and step outside. Maybe it's still dark in the morning. So that full circle comes back to being uncomfortable sometimes. But you know what you got to do because you love to do it, and you do it.
Yeah, pulling weeds, you know, tilling the soil, getting it ready. It's a lot of work, but there's a reward.
Yes.
You know, and the reward's not just, you know, the vegetables that I bring home for my family. I can give some to the neighbor. My neighbor Brian works for M&T Bank. He's a good guy. He had asked his wife, says, "Honey, can you go get me some local tomatoes?" And she's like, "All right, I'll go to Stu's. I think they have some, you know, whatever from a local garden."
Go, Lloyd?
He's like, no, honey, I want something a little more local. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Can you get some from the Pereira farm?" Because I had planted these Belgian pinks, and they're like light on the outside, and they're really dark pink on the inside, and they're so tasty. So he loved those tomatoes. So he didn't, you know, he felt embarrassed asking me, so he sent the wife over, and I gave him a bag. But it makes me
That
feel
is
good, you know, and that gives me, you know, like it's probably the same release that you get from working out. You know, that's my out. You know, watching my grapevines grow, and you know, actually I transplanted. My uncle from Hudson, Mass, brought me some from Hudson. You know, I think that was something that he had some pride that I actually wanted some of his grapevines. My brother, my father-in-law's grapevines from 98 Garfield. I transplanted some. They were all growing in the middle of the weeds. So my mother-in-law says, "Look, you want to bring them over?" So I've given them a nice little place to be.
Look at the network. Look
Yeah.
at this.
But
The
it is-
community coming together
Yeah.
to transcend everything, to bring like sustenance to people. I love it.
And
It's
my
awesome.
next endeavor is to make wine. So
Yeah, you
my-
mentioned that earlier. So when did you start that process, and when do we get to taste some of this?
Yeah, I can't wait for that to come up.
Yeah, we got to wait for the juice to be available. But my uncle brought me he manufactured out of a beer keg, like I guess a wine distiller or whatever you call it. So
To ferment.
to ferment and whatnot. So this is going to be my first year. So you may not want this batch just yet.
So How do you know how to do that? Did someone show you,
No,
teach you?
he's-
Did you?
my uncle's actually going to teach me.
Oh,
So
okay.
I haven't done it just yet, but but I do a lot of research in terms of
Yeah.
gardening. No one taught me how to garden. You just plant stuff and you learn. The first year I didn't put down the mesh in between the plants.
Trial and error, just like
Trial and error.
podcasting.
That's it.
You
It's like,
just
it's
do
like
it.
podcasting, So the first year I went to LBI and I came back and there was weeds growing in between all the plants. I almost fell over and died of a heart attack right there. Couldn't believe it because I had pulled all the weeds before I left. And when I came back, it was such a mess. So I said, there's got to be a better way. So I went and bought some landscaping material. I cut a hole, put the plant in there, and that way it only comes up what I want, either a tomato plant or whatever. Makes my life a little bit easier. So it's trial and error
A little Portuguese ingenuity.
Patience.
and patience.
A lot of patience,
A lot of
especially with
patience.
gardening.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, And even with the grapevines, it takes years for you to reap the benefits of those grapevines because they take years before they start producing grapes.
A quick question for you. So, out of anything that comes from your own residence, shoot out a meal that you or your wife makes that's popular in the household using only the freshest ingredients.
Yeah. Well, actually, last year we made salsa. We made our own fresh
Oh,
salsa.
wow.
So we got the little, I forget what you calls it, the little food processor. And although I shouldn't fib, the red tomato onions weren't from our garden, but this year I'm planting red onions. So I'll have salsa that'll be entirely from our garden.
Nice, nice.
The supply chain gets cut.
Well,
We know where we're
cilantro-
going.
Well, that's it. Listen, I'll have cilantro, red onion.
Are you growing any
tomatoes.
gas out there?
No, no gas.
There you go, yeah. We'll be
I got eggs. Yeah.
fully
For those of you
sustainable.
listening, this week there's a gas shortage throughout the nation. So,
Yes, there is. We're in middle of May 2021 in America.
From Virginia
we're
down though, right? It's
Southern,
not-
yes,
Yeah.
southeastern U.S. That's the pipeline affected that area. But Attorney Pereira, what is the aim? What is the target? What is the goal? Where's your dream? Where are you? Where not where are you? Where do you want to be 10 years from now? Where do you want your kids to be? Like what are you aiming at? What are you working so hard for?
Listen, I just want everybody to be healthy and happy.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for some words of wisdom, I don't know.
I mean, that sounds like wisdom to me. You just want to work hard. You want to be happy and healthy.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
that's a good goal to have. 10, 15, 20, 50 years down the road.
I said that's kind of the
Yeah, I'll be 21.
that's the question.
Legally drink.
That's geez, take that beer back. We're gonna get in
Yeah.
trouble on the internet. Can you get in trouble on the internet?
I don't think so.
I don't know. You could do anything on the internet.
I don't know. You probably could, right?
No, I just want to make sure that everybody's healthy, happy, and
Yeah, that's kind of what we ask ourselves. I mean, it was a lot of our goals parallel. It's like at the end of the day, if at the end of my life and my kids are like, my dad was a good man, then I think I did my job. But we're working hard. We're trying to provide for our family, our greater community, and in a sense, that's what we're here doing, right? We're trying to improve ourselves, trying to learn from other people, and what better way to be spreading the good word and the good life than to being on a podcast, being able to touch millions, maybe billions, who knows? But like we said, if your conversation here today helped one guy to garden, then we did our job. Right? I mean,
Or become an attorney.
yeah, or just
you
say
never know,
or bet their
or
friend,
not become an attorney.
or bet
There
their,
you go.
or bet their friend to become an attorney.
There you go.
Or encourage them, like it is it is amazing. It's like, why don't you do it? Well, if I pass, then I'll do. It is amazing how many stories start from something like that. That's why I always say, what's your aim, what's your target? It's like sometimes you think you're going one direction, and then all of a sudden you're going somewhere else. So we don't know where the world's going to take us, but we do know that the most important thing is our foundation. And I know that you're going to go places and have gone places primarily because of the kind of person you are and the foundation you have. However you got it, whether it was through just a blessing or through your parents or what. But I'm encouraged that the audience is going to be able to see the kind of person I see every day, someone I can rely on and learn from. And I don't think they realize. I know when I have questions, I call you, and it's always nice to have people that you can rely on and ask questions in any facet of life. Now, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you who you call when you have business questions, because I'd be highly insulted if it wasn't me. And if you said it wasn't me. So what I'm going to say, who are you leaning on in life? Like, who are your go-tos for, whether you're doing what you need to do as a husband or a father or a friend? Is there someone that you relied on? Are they here anymore? Like, what are you doing to check yourself?
Boy, it's a good question. I don't know, man. I'm more of a giver than I am, a receiver.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure there's plenty of people, or people across the wavelengths along the internet you probably see that are doing that for you, and you may not even realize it. I know that happens every day. You know that happens with people, and you don't even realize it. So
For me, I get the most perspective from like my father is who I really value his opinion. I always said I've asked him his opinion all the time, and 95% of the time that I don't follow what he's telling me, it's usually wrong. 5% of the time I get it right, so I probably should just default to listening to him. And I'm always getting perspective from my wife and my kids, and I think there's a lot of people in your life that are going to let you know whether you're on the straight and narrow or not. But this is the vehicle that I think helps people that don't necessarily have other people. We learn a lot of things in our work from our colleagues and our homes from our family that can help us, and maybe some people can self-analyze themselves. I know I can't. It's hard to do.
That. No.
When I look in the mirror, I tend to like it, and that's not going to get me to the gym. You know what I mean?
well, you got to like yourself.
Man,
That's right under the umbrella of being selfish.
yeah. I mean, you can't love anybody else if you don't love yourself, right? You got to learn to love yourself.
Absolutely.
Larry, what do you do to love yourself? What do you do to love yourself?
What do I do to love myself? It sounded kind of awkward and dirty, man.
Yeah, it was meant to be awkward. I was meant to be very awkward. I'm just kidding. I don't want you giving any shock theater to the audience, my friend.
Exactly. Give them bad mental images,
man.
Well, we can follow up with something we asked our last guest is what do you think you want to leave as a legacy for your children, and not to be that cliche using the word legacy, but what do you hope to see them be like in 10, 20 years?
I constantly will tell my son Lucas, I want him to blaze his own trail. I don't want him to become an attorney, because he talks a lot about wanting to be an attorney. I try to, convince him that he's going to do his own thing. If he wants to be an attorney, I'll support him wholeheartedly, but I just want them to be their own person. I don't want them to, follow my footsteps for the wrong reason.
Yeah. I'm glad. It's interesting to hear you say that. Just having two sons myself, it's like, and a daughter who could potentially be following in my footsteps or my wife's footsteps. Yeah, you don't want to. It must be a tough line, because it's like you trust them to make the right decision. It's like it's like it's.
And they, in essence, are my legacy. They're my legacy. The fact that they've become what they are so far.
They're your real garden,
Yeah.
Larry. They're your real garden. Right? It's like you put so much into them, and you try to nurture them to become good people. And maybe, I think we're all trying to make our kids become better people than we are, or at least I think we should be trying to do that. And when you're doing that, you're second guessing it. It's like funny you say that, because you're saying, I don't want him to be a lawyer if he doesn't want to. But it's like, what if he really wants to? Are you deterring him from being it? So it's scary, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to do
No,
what
but
he
I had the
thinks.
conversation with him. I want to make sure he's doing it for the right reason. I want him to do it because it's
Have him
something he
come
wants
talk to
do.
me. Don't you worry. I'll make sure he never does it.
Rick Ventura was a big opponent of people becoming a lawyer. Remember?
Yeah, I would say that I don't regret being one, and I know you don't. I know you don't. I mean, there's stress comes with the territory. I do think that as attorneys in our profession, I know we're not looked at. Christ, I mean, they treat sharks better than they treat us. I mean, we're the butt of a lot of jokes, right? I think that we deal with a lot of, especially nowadays, there's not a lot of respect for our profession that there was in the past, right? And some of it's well-deserved, because there are obviously a lot of attorneys that have done bad things, and, with a sue happy nation, I mean, sometimes we don't get our due, because I do think that guys like you and I do a lot of positive things, especially what we do. I mean,
Did you have Professor Lee for ethics?
I definitely did, yes.
Remember how we would start class? He was always with a lawyer joke.
Oh, yeah, but it's like there's a lawyer. Anytime you walk in a room and someone finds out you're a lawyer, you get the lawyer joke, and it's like, why don't sharks eat lawyers? Professional courtesy.
So we had an ethics professor, and he knew that what Steve's talking about, we're not necessarily well respected by a lot of people. A lot of people have the perception of the ambulance chaser, the dirtbag attorney who's going to sue for anything, and there are, it's like anything in any profession. There's good and there's bad, But he wanted us to be prepared, so he had an interest in bad lawyer jokes and good lawyer jokes. So he would ask at the beginning of class, can anybody got any good lawyer jokes? And that was, sort of his way of training Steve and I to get used to the fact that people are going to be, not necessarily giving us, accolades and respecting us, and to the contrary, probably hating us, and making fun of us.
Yeah.
You get it all the time, right?
And it goes with the territory. There's people like, I'm not everyone's flavor of the month, but
They call us liars, right?
Yeah.
Instead of lawyers. Yeah.
Well, it's probably one of the best things you were taught. I'm sure you're calling it out now, so you remember it. So it's very important.
And that's what I think is an important life lesson that we can end on. It's be yourself, be proud of who you are. Don't worry about that stuff as long as you're leading a good life, and we're doing that. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait to have you on again. And thanks for dealing with us and our questions. And
It was my pleasure, guys.
Thank you very much, Larry. We're very much looking forward to the wine coming our way.
No problem. We should have had a legal disclaimer that, you shouldn't act on any of this advice.
you know what?
There's no attorney-client privilege.
The beauty of it is that we only touched on
Act at your own peril.
attorney stuff because it had to do with you. There was certainly no advice, and
No.
and any disclaimer necessary will be a part of this video.
Absolutely.
Put that in.
Follow the link below.
Well, welcome, adios, and you are able to leave now because we have ended this conversation.
Bye-bye.